Okay, here we go.
Test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley. The funny thing about today is that I haven't met our guest on the Unknown Morning Show. Mandee has.
Yes. I've had the good fortune to work with Michael Gibson twice. Welcome.
Yeah. It's good to be here.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
So, and we're talking about, I know that you used to, I thought you were still on 96X, but are you on 96 or KNUE?
I do work on both stations.
Cool.
Now.
I've had a chance in my career to work not so much on different stations, but different parts, doing different things on the station, like at KTBB, and that's fun. I like that. Variety is the spice of life.
It is.
So what are you doing now?
I right now just again still doing stuff for both stations. As part of our job at Town Square is we have to write digitally for our websites. So we have to do that each day. So I just have to find something, just
interesting.
East Texas centric that I can write about, and it's still a lot of fun.
So you post what, one or two a day, and like you have to do like what, 5-6 a week? How does that work?
We do 2 a day, so we have to put up 10 a week.
I'm glad at KTBB. Well, KTBB, we don't have to write anything for that, but it's like when we file stories, when we put stories on our website, they automatically go to X, formerly known as blah blah blah, and Facebook. So it does. I always really have to say that almost, but actually I don't. It's just I find that whole thing interesting.
And what's fun about it too is that we write about like news, quote unquote, stories, but we can also find those kind of offbeat stories to write about. So we can be a little bit more creative in our writing instead of kind of a more news writing. And so I think that for me is kind of the enjoyable part of just being able to have that creative writing part. Michael,
one of the things we sit here and on the Unknown Morning Show, I guess since day one, whether it's Mandee or myself, in fact, our first 2 episodes are kind of like, how did we get our start? Where did we come from? How did we get into it? Were we like 5-year-olds staring at a radio? Was she in her diapers holding up a microphone? One of your best pictures is you're like 7, maybe?
No, I think I was like 3.
3
with a Fisher Price mic.
Yeah, Fisher Price mic.
Yeah. There's a story behind that, but we won't tell it on this one. That's a story for another day. I don't want to take up Michael's podcast with the Fisher Price mic story.
So when did the radio bug bite you squarely?
I would say probably early high school, because that was something I really enjoyed doing at night when I'd be home doing homework or whatever. I'd be listening to Eric Nadell and the Rangers games.
Oh, sure.
And I really like him. I like what he's doing. I like his presentation, being able to paint that picture of the game.
Yeah.
Listening there on the radio.
He felt like he was talking to you, I bet.
Yeah, he did.
Or you felt that way.
He did. And that kind of moved into listening to our local stations here.
Yeah.
And listening to Lucky Larry, who we've worked with forever.
Yeah.
And listening to his morning show, going to school.
Sure.
And just, I was like, I really, really like this. And I was that guy that sat there with the tape and recorded the songs off the radio.
Same.
Yeah.
So, and it's just that's when it really hit me.
And me too. When I was a youngster, in my 18, 19, I would sit there. My first radio gig, KAUS, Austin, Minnesota, I was doing nights, and I would sit there. WLS in Chicago would boom in, clear channel. So I would have a recorder, and I would take I would have like 60-second tapes, and I would record John Landecker, and I'd put it in the grill of my car, thinking, is my battery going to go dead? So I'd go and record a half hour, start up my car for like 3-4 minutes, walk in, do the next record, come out, turn it on to where I could record the rest. And then I'd take tapes and then I'd break them down. God, it was fun because you kind of go, wow, how does this guy do this? And then I found out later that the Chicago jocks had it to where, they would be sitting at a mic like you were, and that's it. They had engineers back in the day.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh man,
Yeah.
oh gosh. And
I can only imagine.
And I didn't find out until I got into sports talk on how stressful being an engineer is, making sure you know your partner enough to anticipate their moves to get this done. So you're sitting there, you're into Eric Nadel, you listen to Lucky Larry. Where did you make that jump to say, how do I get into a radio station? Did you go for an internship or something?
I took kind of it was about a 4-year break between high school and actually starting college.
Okay.
And when I started that, I was like, I've always wanted to do this. Let me start off journalism degree for the specific fact of I want to go into radio.
Okay.
Radio broadcasting. And so I started out TJC doing that for a couple of semesters, and my teacher knew Larry Kent. Here.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, go in there and apply. And so I applied, and it was kind of a luck of the draw. The day I applied,
They needed somebody.
one of their part-timers had just put in their 2-week notice that same day.
Wow.
Yeah.
You learn the
didn't
early
know this
lesson.
story.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's talent. A lot of times it's luck. I've got my last 3 jobs because somebody has wised off or something, and it's like, Chuck, do you want to? Yes, I do. I will take the paycheck vacated by that idiot. Yes.
So which station did you start on then?
I was actually on, it was 96X.
Okay.
With John Boy and Billy, and I just board opted
Okay.
the morning show. So I was showing up at the station at like 4:30 in the morning, and I'd work through the show,
Yeah.
and that was it. And then I'd go to school after that.
But that's a great experience because
Yeah.
it puts you hands on, just punching buttons. I know for KTBB, our sister station, 92.1, the team, we have it. Hey, Bill Coates, we have it. It's like our farm system a little bit for BB because some of the kids that have worked there, my broadcast partner in the afternoon, Jared Jones, was on there about a year and a half. They get to punch buttons, they get used to things, and then when they get over to us, it's not like a shock at all because sometimes it sort of can be. So you're over there. When did you start to go? Did you get to do air work? After producing locally the morning show? How did that work?
Well, I did get to do a little bit. They actually were, why don't you try doing the quick 1-minute news right there at the top
Neat.
of each hour?
Yeah.
And so Dave Goldman was our news director
Yes.
at that time. And so he would have his scripts that he would do for other stations, and he would just pass that down to me. And so I would do that for that minute and a half or so for that news break. And that was kind of my first real introduction into actually being on the air.
But you know what, though? It's what would I say? It's a kind and gentle introduction. It's not like, a bunch of things are thrown in your lap. You have a bunch of, because news can be a bunch of parts too, to get that, and it was something, you get this, you make it work a minute, everybody goes home with their, hands and fingers and stuff. When did you get to do, so was your, after you're doing, how long did you do news for the morning show?
I did that for maybe 4 to 5 months, maybe, and we had a little bit of an exodus of some people.
Okay.
And that's when I got to move over to KNUE and board hopping with Big D and Bubba.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
I think that's kind of where everything started accelerating.
Was it because the fact that maybe Big D and Bubba had a lot of moving parts and you had to keep up with the moving parts? You kept up with the moving parts. They noticed it. And okay.
Yeah. Big D and Bubba definitely had, for a syndicated morning show, they did have a lot of moving parts that we could do here locally to make the show sound local.
Well, I remember years ago, and it was during a snow situation. It was like 10, 15 years ago. And I was going to work, and I was, there's kind of this hobby where you DX back and forth and find out who's got their shit together on during severe situations, right?
Yep.
You do it, I do it. Or like if power goes down, it's like, hey, who doesn't have power? But we do.
I still do it. Anytime there's a severe weather, I'm like, all right, who's got the meteorologist on? Who's on it first?
Yeah. Makes me sound like an empty soul, and I kind of am. But anyway, one of the things, and it was a snowstorm situation, and Big D and Bubba was either keeping up or beating local stations. And that was probably you doing it maybe 15, 20 years ago. Somewhere in there, because, man, it was like Johnny on the spot, and I'm listening, I'm going, wow, how does that work? Because I kind of think, well, how does that work if you have, if they have multiple things going on there, so they're really working it. Now, and they do a good job, too, so... I don't know if they're going to land any place in Tyler now that I don't know what's left.
Yeah, we'll see. I was still really confused with how they were using Big D and Bubba
on the ranch.
On the ranch.
Badly.
That didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Badly, yes, Chuck. Badly.
But I mean,
when I say
we'll see.
When I say badly, that has nothing to do with their show. It has everything to do with, and I was their PD once. She was my right-hand person back for 4 years. And, you don't sit there and say, okay, we are your classic radio station, and you put essentially a contemporary country talk show in the morning to eat up 4 hours. You don't do that. No. It's stupid. Anybody knows that. My dog would know that, and so I just don't. I've never understood that, except, my feeling is obviously nobody local made that decision.
But part of what I think is interesting is about your career is you've worked at both places, right? So remind me, when we were working at Alpha now, but it was East Texas Radio Group back in the day, when we worked there together, I know you were doing some stuff for the websites and you were doing some video work. Did you do any on-air work too while we were there?
I did a little bit on the ranch. I think they had me on a Saturday afternoon shift.
I thought you did something because
2 or 3 hours.
For most of that time, I was focused on Sunny. I was I was kind of the APD for KOOI and doing a bunch of public service stuff. And so I couldn't remember where the other moving pieces were at the various radio stations. But, you had the opportunity to board up for Big D and Bubba twice, right? Did you start with them when they first came on?
Well, they had been on, I think they brought them on 99 maybe.
Yeah.
And I started in 2000. So they'd already been on. Because at the time, Bob Malden was on KNUE. He was board opping the show. And then when he left, that's when I took his spot.
Gotcha. I did not realize that y'all's paths crossed like that at that time.
Because they've been there 22 years or something at KNUE.
Yeah, they've been there a long time.
I think
they were.
If I remember right, I think KNUE was maybe their second or third station when they were syndicated. Yep. That was a shocker. But on the other hand,
things run their course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things happen. I get it.
And I think that might have been more the move that the ranch was taking, just because they left KNUE. People knew who Big D and Bubba were.
Yeah.
And I think they were just kind of, I guess, on the coattails of them leaving. Yeah. So let's put them over here. Maybe we can move a few people over.
Well, and the other thing, too, is sometimes when you have something like that, and to be totally honest, you have something where maybe that signals. Because when they did that, I thought, well,
are they going to change the format?
Thank you. Maybe the ranch is going to go
a little bit younger, a little bit more contemporary.
Yeah. And maybe not, KNUE, maybe not, certainly, new, but maybe, not as young. I don't know. I mean, because I also get that. When I programmed the ranch, I tried to have the space as big enough where you'd play, Haggard and Hank Sr., Hank Jr., but, we were also playing Tim McGraw, Pam Tillis, and all that stuff, too. So, I don't know. I mean, everybody's a Monday morning quarterback, including yours truly. So I'm probably the worst at it too, because every once in a while I'll get reminded of something. Oh yeah, okay, sorry, I'm being an a-hole. Let me have some more coffee.
You're not being
but I'm sure there is a select group.
I'm willing to learn.
Yeah, I'm sure there is a select group of that audience though that they were kind of driven away from the station because of that change.
Oh sure.
Whether they liked Big D and Bubba or not, it was the fact that show is just. It's its own little shell. Yeah. Everything's enclosed in it, so they don't want to hear that top 40 music.
Oh, sure.
They wanted to hear the Hanks and the Johnny Cashes.
Yeah, and to me, it was kind of like, I really enjoyed the fact that you could do Hank Sr., Hank Jr., and try to have the modern stuff, because it's kind of like anything, it's a balancing act, because you have it to where not only is it, you're balancing the genre within the genre, because then you're sitting there going, okay, You have certain production sounds from the 50s. It certainly is going to sound like the 70s. And rock is like, okay, classic rock is definitely like that. You can hear from probably starting with the Eagles in that era, when you can hear the production sounding totally different, where it's almost like everything, like, the Byrds sounds like it's mono almost, that sort of thing.
That is definitely the debate in classic rock, is because we've actually on classic rock started playing some 90s stuff.
Okay.
So like Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Soundgarden, stuff like that.
I hear them
and
I go, wait a minute.
And so really the debate is, among the purists, is like, that's not really classic rock because it doesn't sound like classic rock.
But it's like 30 years old. Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit, 30 years old.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And but it's not, they don't consider it the age of the music. They consider it the sound of the music.
Oh.
So if you get to like 89 and back, that's what they want to hear.
Yeah. Buy me a cup of coffee, Mandee.
Yeah.
I've seen that on other podcasts. That's literally...
Yeah, it's like a virtual tip jar. It's really that simple. So you go to the show notes, click Buy Me a Coffee, and then you have an opportunity to support the show in any way you like. Imagine yourself going to coffee with Chuck and myself and saying, hey, I like what you do on the show. I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee. Only all you have to do is click a link. It's that simple.
Which I get, we had Michael Storm in here recently because he started his station, Great FM. And
That's a great station, too.
It is a great station.
Such a good station.
But he's talked a little bit about the yacht rock vibe is kind of like that, too. It kind of has its own little funky sound.
Yeah.
It's like it's its own little genre within a genre almost. And I watched the documentary that he recommended on Max, I guess now HBO Max for rebranding.
1 free month for you.
Well, wouldn't that be nice? But anyhow, it's kind of got its own flavor of sound. And I know what you're talking about because it is a little bit, and I like both. I like classic rock and I like Nirvana and Pearl Jam. But they do sound very different.
Yeah.
And so when you're listening to the sound of the station, it can be a little bit like, whoa, did I just take a left turn somewhere?
It's
audibly.
It's definitely a lot different.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something. Do you think that you maybe can protect the music if you separate it with bumpers, liners, and jingles, or do you think maybe it's still going to clash whatever you do? You know what I mean?
I've never really thought about it doing it that way.
And I don't. And I mean, the only time I ever did that when I was with KNUE back in the '90s, we introduced, around '95, we started playing Haggard and some of the early country stuff, Haggard and Jones and everything. And I had like a small rotation, like 35 songs that played maybe 5 times a day. Didn't play in the drives at all. And yeah, we had one of those buffers, big voice guy would come in, something about one of your legendary favorites, 101.5 KNUE, and bam, and then it would be Haggard. So I don't know.
Well, you did that a little bit when we were at the ranch too, with like I think we called them super oldies, but like we'd do something that was almost like Western swing, like 50s stuff. And
Bob Wills,
because it does. San Antonio Rose sounds very different than like Waylon Jennings and Merle Haggard, right?
And it was usually something kind of like, it would be in the first sweep, it would be the last song. So, if it's middays, for instance, Mandee's coming out, 104.1 The Ranch, Bob Wills, whatever swing song that is, and blah, 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 coming up. We have more of your favorites on the way.
Yeah. Transitioning.
Man, that was a bad Mandee, but it's just.
I mean, you do your best when you're put on the spot.
Bad Mandee sounds like a Tarantino character, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh.
Her name was Bad Mandee. She was a waitress. Place. I'm going down the rabbit hole. So,
hey, speaking of pop culture, though, Michael's got some fun interests.
Yeah,
You're into video games. You're into Transformers. You're into movies. You're into superheroes. I mean, we have things in common between you two that you don't know about.
When you mean Transformers, I mean, are you talking specifically on the movie? Is it like maybe cosplay? I don't understand.
I collect the toys.
Oh, yeah.
Well, see, that was growing up. That was one of my very favorite cartoons.
Yes.
Was coming home from school when they had cartoons after school.
Yes.
And Transformers would be on. I'd sit down and watch it, Optimus Prime, this whole thing. And that was just my favorite show. they had the animated movie and we got to see that. And it was just that's just always been, probably my favorite thing. And then getting to get the toys and get to play with them and do all that stuff. And yeah.
If you run into it on TV now, Transformers cartoon, are you going to stop and watch for a second?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
I actually I've got all 4 seasons on DVD.
I'm a Johnny Quest guy.
Yeah.
Growing up. Oh, God, even to this day. Yeah. I remember years ago I was recording back in the VCR days. I have one tape. It's like Johnny Quest. And I was like, is this weird? I go, not for me, it isn't.
No.
But yeah, you're a poker player, huh? Like Vegas stuff?
I do like playing poker. Mostly for fun. I don't play a whole lot for money.
Okay.
But I do like playing for fun because it's just it's an interesting game. It's an interesting strategy that you have to take trying to play it.
Would you call it like you've got to be like I guess, do you feel that you have to be like a really good mathematician to sit there and look at the cards and, look at your odds and kind of figure that on the fly?
I mean, a little bit. And I think it's more, for me, it's more trying to predict what I might be able to get.
Yeah.
And if I don't think I have a chance at getting it, then
I'm not a good gambler. I remember about 35 years ago, I was visiting back in my home state, Minnesota, and I made $30 off some scratch offs, lost it, and I haven't. Not even the Texas lottery. I just don't gamble. I feel like it's kind of like, or as I would tell my wife, if anybody's going to win in the family, dear, it's you. So I just don't do that at all.
We had your friend, or our friend Lisa, in the chair last week, and we were talking about events, and I know that's one of the things that you've enjoyed participating in over the years as well. When we've been at Town Square, is some of the events. What are some of your favorites?
Well, obviously our Red Dirt Barbecue and Music Festival, we just had that last weekend. So, I mean, that's been a huge deal. I've been a part of that every year except for the first, because I wasn't with the group that very first year they put it on. So since year 2, I've been a part of that event. So that's always been great. We used to do a Women's Night Out event at the old Harvey Hall.
All right.
And just like it sounds, it was just an event geared toward the women of East Texas. We would find some kind of, star that the ladies loved, and that would be who we bring in.
Soap opera guy, maybe?
Did we ever have a soap? I can't remember if we had a soap opera guy. We had what was his name? Fettuccine, the guy from Twilight.
Carlisle Cullen. Michael. What is his last name? But it's not Fettuccine.
It's not Fettuccine, but it's close. But, we had him one year.
Francelli or Fratelli?
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. He played Dr. Carlisle Cullen in the Twilight series.
Peter
Facinelli.
His wife is
Michael.
His ex-wife is somebody
famous.
That was like in Beverly Hills 90210, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm impressed that you know this.
I have a good memory on things.
You have a
there's really
joke.
some inside old guy jokes on that one.
I forgot. Was he nice?
He was.
Yeah?
He was. He was very nice. And obviously the ladies very much loved him.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Apparently they got me one year to model like pajamas. I don't know how they got me talked into that.
Was it a onesie? What kind was it?
It was like 2-piece. It was like pants with the long button-up shirt, and they got me to unbutton the shirt and take it off, and I was just like, well, why am I doing this?
Wow.
But I had fun with it, and it was fun.
Things you're doing for the radio station.
Yeah. Lisa said something about coming out on like a camel race. Did you guys race camels?
Oh, good grief. I forgot about that. Yes, we did.
What's your version of that story?
You know what? Oh, my goodness. I've completely forgotten about that. And honestly, I don't remember a whole lot of details.
Why have you forgotten? We want to know that.
But yes, we have done camel.
She talked about that. And she talked about, the possum trot.
Oh, my goodness.
Uh-oh.
So one year we got invited to be kind of, I guess, the radio stations of the possum trot out in Roansboro.
Yeah.
Fine small town.
I'm sure lovely people.
They were. And they had like a parade, and like the queen had a possum in the float with her. And she was like the possum queen. Well, they had me.
Awesome.
They had me MC the 5K run that they were doing with it, and so I was sitting up in the stadium where everybody was gathered.
Were you doing play-by-play on it?
Well, it was just
How do you do that?
They're
just running. They're running some more.
It was kind of like that. but here's the great part about that is they didn't have it wasn't like a radio communication, radio to the announcer guy so he can do this. There was a guy who would come to the bottom of the steps. He would yell up to me the update for me to say out over the mic.
Yeah.
So pretty much the 10 people that were sitting there in the stadium already heard what he said because he's yelling it up to me and I'm saying it over the mic.
Just repeating what you've just heard?
Pretty much.
Awesome.
Pretty much.
That's so cool.
Stuff like that you just go with.
Oh, sure.
You go with it and you have a good time with it.
Yeah.
And but that was definitely a very memorable event to be a part of.
You get at the end and you probably ask, what swag do I get? Michael, would you like a possum hat? Uh-huh. Well, yes, I would.
Actually, I don't even think we got anything for going out there for that. It was like a 2-hour drive to get out there, and no offense to the people of Ronesboro, but man, it was just out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh man,
they probably love being in the middle of nowhere. That's probably why they settled there.
But they were.
I think that's their city slogan.
I mean, possums in the middle of nowhere.
Go away, we love being here.
But I can tell you, they were so excited to have the stations that they listened to.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
And that they loved listening to our stations. They loved it.
Isn't that awesome though when that happens?
Yeah.
All kidding aside, because
it is.
You feel at that time you kind of put on your public servant hat. Mm-hmm. You're out there. Mm-hmm. People have listened because let's face it. I mean, and all of us would probably agree. Once you're when you're behind the mic doing your gig, you kind of go, well, are they listening? Is it making an effect? Do they even care? And they do. Mm-hmm. And that's neat. I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
So you've done that, but you've also had some really extraordinary experiences like meeting Garth Brooks. Right? Like, it's fun. Radio is one of those things where you get to do both, right?
I'm going to say that as far as my radio career, that is probably the highlight. And that happened so early in my career.
Really?
I definitely want to hear. I have a Garth Brooks thing that happened to me. What happened? It was during Scarecrow.
So when he released the Scarecrow album, so that was 2001. So I started in November of 2000. This was in October of 2001.
Okay.
So I hadn't even been doing it a year. But Larry Kent, who was our operations manager at the time, he was like, man, you've been doing a good job. I met Garth Brooks 1,000 times. Why don't you go? And it was just an overnight flight to Nashville and at the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Oh,
and we got to...
In Nashville. Gotta love it.
And we got to listen to the album track by track before it was released. And Garth would come out and tell a story about every single song.
Wow.
And it was just really cool. I mean, there was like 200 other radio people from all across the country there. And then we got to do a meet and greet with him afterwards. And I mean, he would take 5 or 6 minutes with every single person in line. And the one thing that I will never forget is I walked up to him and I introduced myself. I said, I'm from Tyler. Y'all have that oil palace, don't you? He didn't have a second hesitation.
Yeah.
Y'all have that oil palace, don't you? And I said, yes, sir, we do.
Yeah.
How could he remember that? Was it 89 when he played there?
He does.
And he's played all over the world. Yeah. And he was able to remember that oil palace. But, I mean, he was just super cool. He signed like 6 photos for me for some of my friends who wanted his autograph. And he was that way with every single person in line. It was just an awesome experience to get to meet him.
When he was doing the concerts where he's in the harness flying all over the place, the Southeastern rep for Capitol calls me and says, you want to go to the show? And I said, sure. So Rosie and I go to the show. And we had the backstage. And I'd always heard the backstage was really special. And Rosanna had a couple of T-shirts she bought. And she goes, are those my shirts? And, well, yes. And he looks at his manager and says, 220s, please. Your money's no good here. And and so he asked what we wanted to drink. And he, serves up beer for us, and it was just really, really, really special. The whole thing was incredible. But would you not agree that most people, I can't think of anybody that I've met in the entertainment business that was rude. I can't at all. It seems, I mean, I think they understand, kind of what's on the line. And I also think that they probably remember their roots, which is at one time they were just somebody trying to get ahead.
I've had a couple rude experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only time that I think Lori Morgan was filming a video at the Oil Palace, which I was like,
why?
Well, yeah. Well,
sorry.
And over here, are the male restrooms made out of, the urinals are actually horse troughs. It's like, but yeah.
I'm sure that didn't make the video.
And she was kind of tense and everything. And in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, you're doing a video and I get it. But, I mean, I would have things like talking to Ricky Van Shelton. We're talking to him like 5-6 minutes in the line, and there's people in back. And I'm like, hey, man, thanks for talking. We got to go because there's, listeners that want to talk to you. I've never had an experience where it's like, wow, what a a-hole. Mm-hmm. Everybody was kind and cordial. And I think that they were, probably at the very worst, they probably looked at it. You know what? Take care of business. Here's a stop on the tour. Then what's next? I got to remember that we're in Tyler. Garth did.
I didn't get to meet Garth, but I did get to interview him twice when I was at KNUE when he was doing his comeback tour, when he did all the concerts maybe about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he remembered Tyler then. Now, I don't know if he prepped ahead of time. I mean, it was a phone interview, but we talked about his shows at the Oil Palace on that conversation too. He was the nicest, so generous with his time, so kind. And he actually had one of the interviews that, I can't remember if it was the first or the second one. I think it was the second one. He had a death of a close family friend and had to reschedule. He wasn't able to. His manager, I think Bob might be his manager's name.
Okay.
Let me know. And then when he rescheduled with me, because he did reschedule and we did the interview, I said, I'm so sorry about your loss and thank you for making time again. And he was like, well, that is so kind of you to acknowledge that. I mean, we just had a real conversational moment of just you're a human.
Yeah.
And you experience things like we all do.
Yes.
It was, I don't know. It just kind of, I was like, okay. So he's as down to earth as I thought he was. Yeah.
But also, and not to take away from the amazement of this, but I think he's one of those people that has the eidetic memory. And so I think he basically can remember everything.
That's impressive.
But it's
probably a burden too.
I'm sure. Yeah. But that's still just very cool that he would want to bring something like that up.
Yeah.
In a situation where he's talking to different people.
So what is are you doing much concert business at the Oil Palace these days with KNUE?
We haven't over the last few years.
It's kind of seemed like, at least in my memory, it seemed like things started really peaking, I think around 2000, maybe even like early 2000s. And what I had heard is that the Oil Palace was just getting priced out because, I would hear if Vince Gill was going to be there, it was like $150,000 to get him in the gate, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So
they couldn't charge enough to support the acts is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and the Oil Palace was something too that, I mean, it was interesting because the venue itself would always have they would always have pretty much slow ticket sales except the day of, and then just blank. You'd have, if
day of sales.
Oh yeah, like if Hank Jr. was coming to town, man, you'd have busloads of people. And this was probably like mid '90s when Hank was still, touring. I don't even know if he tours anymore. It does maybe the casino circuit, but yeah,
Alan Jackson came. When did he? 13 or 14. KNUE had Alan Jackson.
Oh yeah.
But I think I may have been at the Blaze when that was going on. I don't remember if I was with Town Square. Yeah. But so it may have been 2013, somewhere in there. Okay. He came back because the last two concerts that I went to at the Oil Palace were Alan Jackson and 2 Chainz.
Well.
And they were not far apart, if I remember correctly.
That's an interesting mix.
They did not perform together. No. Just to make that clear.
Yes.
But those are the last 2 concerts I remember going to out there.
I went back at KNUE at that time. I think I was at KCKL in Malakoff.
Were you?
That time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good show. I mean, I was up close. I didn't get a chance to meet him then either. So yeah, I must not have been with the station. I must have been over at the Blaze at that time. But I saw Amy there. Amy was, I think, back at KNUE at that time and had helped put that show on. But it was, well attended. I'm sure Alan Jackson isn't, $150,000 these days either. I mean,
No.
Or 10 years ago, he's probably, I don't even think he's touring now.
Alan, I think
He's not doing well, right? Health
I
wise?
think
he's 71, I believe. Which,
I'm impressed that you know that. Look at that memory.
I saw my doctor the other day, you get to a point in life.
Off mic conversation has just become on mic.
And they do. I'm 67, so once you start getting Medicare, they do the memory tests, and it's just you do the 3 words, and my doctor just said, "Oh, this is not good." And I'm like, "Look, I'm in a job where I'm responsible for 40 pieces of sound a day. I know how to run the list. I'm just fine, except I hate tests, and I really hate this one." And then he explained, "But if you have memory problems, I want you to tell me right now in case we have more problems down the road and I can't help." Yes, doctor. I kind of ranted a little bit.
That's okay.
Was it a quiet rant?
Isn't that a typical guy, though?
Oh, yeah.
As far as with the doctor.
Yeah.
Well, I go to the doctor, and I love my doctors. They're very good. But yeah, I'm kind of like that. I'm kind of like, ugh, okay.
And, I gained a lot through COVID weight-wise, and I told him, I said, "You know what? I've done this a couple of times where I've scaled back exercise. I'd hurt my shoulder. My disc slipped last summer, so I've been and it's been really slow for everything healing, so I'm getting to the point where I'm going to go back to the gym and do something. So let's get back to you, because who the hell cares about my gym habits? Although I usually like to start at about a half an hour on the treadmill.
Just in case anybody's looking for some gym tips.
Exactly. Where we were talking about concerts, Garth Brooks, kind of comparing things. So at this point, God, Mandy, I don't know where the hell I'm going with this one.
Well, Michael, you've had a lot of experiences like that, though. But what are some of the most memorable ones where you've had a great interaction with an artist?
Keith Urban.
Yeah?
I got to meet Keith Urban, I think it was 2009, I think it was. He was coming to Shreveport, and got to do a meet and greet with him. And, he did the whole picture thing, and you didn't get to do an individual picture with him. It was with kind of a group of people.
Like with your listener group?
It wasn't a listener group because...
or you were just the only one from the station,
yes,
right? Okay.
Yes. And so there was just a group of like 10 people.
Okay.
And that's how they did it. So they bring in a group of 10 people, you take a picture with him. And then, but he was really nice. Came out and he would shake everybody's hands, say, thanks for coming. And then they willed us or walked us into this other room. And we'd sit down and we're like, what is this? Well, then he came in, Keith Urban did.
Yes.
And did like this acoustic show for us, and did like 2 songs, 3 songs,
wow,
something like that for us. Yeah,
that's cool.
It was just a really neat vibe because he had like this little elevated stage with just a stool, and he'd have a little mandolin, and we were all sitting on these benches in this kind of darkened room, and it was really cool.
It's sweet because he's saying, "Hey man, I care for you guys." Mm-hmm. We've thought this up to do this. I like Keith Urban. I have a sweet spot for people who have overcome difficulties in their lives. Robert Downey Jr., people like that. I just, it's like more power to them. So if you've ever, seen something like that or have a friend or people in your life that has a problem, anyway, not to get on my pedestal on that one, but yeah, I just think that they're special people because that's hard to do. Yeah. Whether you're trying to kick drugs, carbs, whatever, it's all difficult. No? Hey, food's a big deal, man.
It is. Food is a big deal. It is a big deal.
Taylor Swift was really nice too. I think you've gotten to meet Taylor, haven't you?
Yeah. What was your experience?
She was opening for Rascal Flatts.
Okay.
And we got to go in there and meet her.
So this was early on.
Yeah, this was her early career.
Her country
before
stuff,
pop. Yeah.
But I mean, she's an absolute sweetheart. She gave every single person that came up to her a hug. Mm-hmm. I mean, and her mom was there, and her mom was super nice.
Wow,
it was really cool. really cool to get to meet her. And I hear that she's still like that
she was,
to this day, as huge as she is.
Yeah. So
she's still like that.
Larry and I met her in 15, because she went pop. Like she fully transitioned. I mean, she kind of like skirted the lines for a while, but when she released 1989 and Shake It Off was huge in the fall of 14, her first U.S. concert on that tour was in Shreveport, of all places.
Oh.
She had done a few shows. I can't remember if it was in Asia or Europe first, but her first U.S. show was in Shreveport. And Larry and I got invited to go, and we were able to bring a guest. And I think Chase Colston went with us, actually. Was it Chase? I don't know. Maybe it was just Larry and me. Maybe Chase was trying to get my spot. Maybe that's what it was. I think that's what it was.
Imagine
Chase wanted to go. I think that's what it was. But Larry took me instead.
Taylor.
I mean, she's a beautiful woman. She was incredibly nice and such a professional. And her situation, it was kind of similar to what you described with Keith Urban a little bit. The other meet and greets I've done in the past, it's more like a cattle call. Like it's a long line, you're waiting, they sign something for you, they take a quick picture, you kind of pose, and then you're out the door. Well, this was radio personalities, specifically the group that we were with. But they pulled us into a room, and it looked like a New York loft. They had these canvas walls up that looked like white brick, and it was decorated and styled with like a white sofa. There was a photo booth. There was a table of Taylor's favorite foods. So there was like Diet Coke and pizza and snacks. And it feels like there was something else in the room, but it was very styled and very homey. And we're all just kind of hanging out in this room. There's probably 15, 20 of us. And she walks in and she worked the room. Instead of standing in one spot and us going to her, she came around the room.
That's cool.
Yeah, she introduced herself to each of us. She personally signed a photo for each of us, and then took a professional photo with each of us that they later sent to us. Like she had a professional photographer with her.
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
Did she come up to you and say, "Hi, I'm Taylor"?
Yes.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
Did you say, "I know"?
And I actually don't remember. I probably temporarily sort of blacked out. It's sort of a surreal experience, but she was so just exuded an energy of, I care about the people in this room. And then after she left, her mom then took us on a backstage tour and showed us her costumes and kind of the different digital elements and how everything pulled together where it was produced, because she had massive theater production for her stage sets. But yeah, it was an extraordinary experience. I left there. I wasn't a huge fan before. I didn't really like her country albums very much, if I'm just being completely honest. I really enjoy her pop music. And 1989 is probably still my favorite album of hers. And it could be related to that experience because it was just really special.
She writes perfect pop music. What is the one style? To me, it's like a perfect pop song. It has.
She had like 5 or 6 hits on that album.
It was like the hook was there, the ramp was the opening range. You just as a guy who's sitting there, has been a music director at a bunch of places. You hear it and you go, hit. I mean, you don't even have. That's how you look at it. You just go, that's a smash right now.
It's funny you mentioned that song because I have always enjoyed that song, and I'm not.
You're not a pop fan typically.
I'm not a pop fan, but I did actually very much enjoy that song, and I think it's what you're talking about because it's got just that perfect beat, that perfect style to it.
Do you ever talk over? Do you ever do fake talk over ramps, whether even if it's pop stuff, and you use your own name? Hi, it's Chuck McKinley, and it's Taylor and Style, and then
you sound dumb.
Well, yeah, I do. I did sound dumb, but you know what? If you're going to sound dumb, we're the perfect vehicle. She was, Mandee was talking about, you meet the person. We meet, and we meet celebrities. Who did you meet where you where your brain went to Jamaica for half a second, where you go, they're that awesome. Was it Taylor Swift or who else was that?
Probably Bret Michaels.
Wow. Oh, I forgot. Okay. He came to Tyler, didn't he?
Yeah, it was that little Valentine show he did several years ago and got to go back and meet him. And he was not at all like I was expecting.
Isn't that weird when that happens?
And
was it something? Was your thought was like, oh, of course, it's a show business?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was different? What did you expect, and then what happened that was unexpected?
Well, because I just kind of expected kind of more this just a hard rock attitude. And he didn't have that. He was genuine, and he was nice, and he was cordial. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't fit you're poisoned. What is this? But it was great. I mean, he was super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a Metallica shirt on. He didn't make fun of me because I had a Metallica shirt on. But but yeah, that was kind of an unusual experience because I just didn't think he would be like that.
It reminds me of that. Is it Wayne's World when Wayne meets? Is it like Alice Cooper that he
Alice
meets?
Cooper.
And he's like incredibly intelligent and well spoken, and it's very confusing. Yeah.
Oh, to this day, when you hear about Alice Cooper in Phoenix, and he went golfing with somebody. What? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember meeting Reba. It was probably the best concert I've ever seen at the Oil Palace. It was a triple bill, like in the early '90s. It was Reba, Brooks and Dunn, and Sawyer Brown.
Can you imagine?
It was just
I bet Sawyer Brown's good. I never got to see them live. I bet they were great.
Back in the day, Mark Miller could really, really move it. But I remember meeting Reba, and it's like meeting the Queen. Now, hi, Miss McIntyre, and you're just going like, she's on top of the Queen of country music at that time, and hell, she's been it forever, and you just kind of sit there and go, okay, just breathe. There's my wife would say now, yoga breathing, relax, relax. It's just Reba. Come on. Oh, it's not, man.
It's not just Reba.
I saw David Allan Coe once. He was doing a show at the Oil Palace, and he was being interviewed by KLTV or somebody, and I was like sitting maybe on the lower bleachers, maybe 10 feet away, and they're interviewing him, and he was talking like a Harvard law professor, and I'm going, David Allan Coe? Yeah. This is David Allan. He never even called me by my name. The forbidden tracks we can never play. That David Allan Coe? And it was like, gee, it was the craziest thing. And then I reminded myself, of course, show business. It's one thing. And, I get that. I totally, totally get that. So, I mean, we're all doing. One of the interesting things about I feel about if you're a lifelong broadcaster, we kind of transition to different things. For better or for worse, I ended up doing sports talk for a couple of years. Loved it because I didn't know what I was doing, and I had great teachers: Reed Kerr, Brian Houston. Then went into was a production director and got into news and was doing news. Really didn't know what I was doing, but I watched people that was around me. What do you think? I mean, if you could transition to anything besides what you're doing, and you've had a little bit of news experience, would you do that, or where do you think you do or go?
I don't know if I do news. I would probably be interested maybe in doing like video production.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because that's something that I've gotten to dip my toes in over the years with how radio is done. Video has kind of started coming into that, which is something that used to not be a part of radio.
Do you have to mess with like the video end if you're putting together something for instance, a Facebook post or something like that?
We don't have to do that as much now, but just doing that and putting the different elements in the video and kind of creating the visual experience of that has always been kind of fun for me, and I wouldn't mind doing that. Okay. And I've never had to mess with video. I know that we've talked to people on this show where, they've talked about doing video, and we've kind of talked about it. I don't know. I don't know if I get my head wrapped around it yet, but I don't know. Maybe that's something for the future. I'm not sure.
Do you find, Michael, I've done a little bit of it, mostly for social media. Do you find that the skills that you have with audio production translate pretty well because it's a similar sort of creative experience and the tools are similar?
Yeah. Audio and video kind of have their different, creative paths. But in a way, they can all kind of come together as well.
Okay, so if you do audio, okay. And
I mean, it's not splicing tape, but essentially, like with video, you're still splicing and manipulating the images similarly to like splicing audio and putting it together. I mean,
because the audio, you're trying to create that visual in their head, but with video, you're putting that visual in front of them, but you're trying to make it an interesting visual so they'll stay looking at it.
You know, and I get it these days with the tools that are out there. I have my broadcast partner, Jared Jones. He's 22, and he has some online sports that he does. And he was showing me something on his laptop where it was a presentation that he uses for clients. He does like freelance games. And I was just so totally amazed. It was like crystal clear picture, the chirons flying across there, and I'm going, really? This is like ESPN quality. He goes, oh yeah, gets them every time. But you know,
You would enjoy meeting Jared, Michael.
Okay.
He's a neat young guy and really entrepreneurial. It's Antler Sports Network.
Yeah, Antler Sports Network.
Yeah, and so he broadcasts games for a variety of schools, primarily.
And I've never, and I tried to, because I was asked, because, for instance, Kenny Smith, does Lindale stuff, or he's in Lindale or Van, and he does that. So I've never, and I know that, like, for instance, baseball season now, like he's doing Lindale baseball, and if Lindale were to go out of the playoffs, I think he'd probably try to hook on another team. But what I guess I was going to say is, I don't understand the concept of basically freelancing, because he'll talk to a school and say, oh, you've got a tournament coming up? We'll take care of it. X amount of cash. And so I find that one interesting. But you know what? If you can make a buck, you can make a buck. Yeah. You know, I did mobile DJ service for a better part of 20 years, and it was, otherwise, besides throwing out a shoulder, then it was kind of like, oh, okay.
That's a whole other monster. I've done a little bit of that.
What'd you think about it?
That's not for me.
What did you do? Did you do kids' parties? Did you do weddings or whatever kind of was happening?
I did a couple of weddings.
Yeah.
I was like, John Moore, I actually, he would overbook.
Yeah.
When he used to do it, and he would give those overbookings to me. Yeah. So I did 2 or 3 of them, I think, something. Yeah.
There's a stress level with it. I mean, I would, my wife would come with me in the early days, and I would sit there and I'd go, all right, hon, I'm going to play Macarena. If this doesn't work, let's run. We never had that. But
kids' dances were fun, but you're right. Weddings were stressful. Weddings are why I stopped doing it too, because it's like there's those moments that, like, it's a special moment for those people. And if it doesn't hit right, you feel responsible on some level, or at least I did. And then I had a few interactions with bridesmaids that just made me not want to do it anymore, where they were asking for things that we already discussed that we weren't going to do.
Yep.
And I just hated being the music police and having that difficult interaction, and then also going, if I'm difficult with this person, knowing I'm on the air somewhere, are they then going to trash me later? Mandee Montana's a bitch, possibly because I was holding the line.
Yeah. And I found out really early. I tried to sit there, and this was like 95. I tried to put together, if I was doing kids dances, I tried to play old school. And of course, I found out
that don't fly.
No, and I had to become an expert on looking at the charts, finding music, splicing out the bad words, and putting things together. And that itself, man, that was a huge, huge headache. But on the other hand, I enjoyed it. I mean, there were times when, like, to me, there was nothing better than when a wedding or maybe a corporate party was really cooking and people really,
Chuck McKinley is a god.
I was at the Southeast Holiday Inn.
He's told this story once or twice to me.
And we had one gig. I had one gig. It was a Christmas party. And I would tell clients, it was in the contract, look, if you want to extend, see me 15 minutes beforehand and get ready. So it went like, it was supposed to end at midnight. No, it was supposed to end at 10. It was from 7 to 10. And we'd already gone 2 hours into overtime. And for the third hour, the guy comes and goes, can I go get some money? And so they come with $96 that he collected. And I said, sure. So we're rocking out, and the guy's standing on the bar. Chuck McKinley is a god. And I go, I'm just a guy that's got an extra $300, man. And that was fun. That was really fun. But the one that finally did me in, I was in, and I forget the town, but it was in the middle of BF Egypt. And I was upstairs. And I had to get my speaker up. I was taking my speaker up the stairs, and to get it down, I had to kind of lift it over, and it hurt my rotator. And for years, it hurt my rotator. So when her and Aaron got married, they were the last gig I've ever done. I was just fine with it. But like any person that does these, Yeah, in my office, there's a corner. My gear is still there. Just in
I
case.
sold mine. You know, I got roped into doing so many nonprofit things. I did it once. And then once they realized Mandee will donate her services, word got out.
Yes.
And I finally sold my speakers to Kenny Smith, actually, because I was like, I don't want to tell them no and then be like, oh, but please, we know you do such a great job. And then they're going to flatter me and compliment me when I'm really not that great at it anyway. And I was just like, I don't have my gear anymore. I can't.
Yeah. Now, I will say...
And also, you should pay someone. I know that you're a worthy cause, but people's professional services are worth money.
Yes.
But I was a club DJ for a little while. And so that's...
How was that?
That was a little different than doing weddings.
Did you enjoy that?
It was a little bit more fun.
What format did you do?
It was country.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But, you play mostly country, and then you throw in some dance tunes for a little while.
Yeah.
Throwing the line dances or whatever. And that was a little bit more fun.
Were you able to mix it up with maybe playing rock and roll stuff within?
Every once in a while.
It depends.
Yeah.
Maybe you took requests or something. Like if somebody said, hey, will you play That's the Way I Like It? Could you get away with that or something?
Yeah.
It depends what's on. I'm sure you were going by the database that the club had, I guess.
Yeah, whatever they had on their computer. But,
okay.
I would add stuff,
Yeah.
some stuff. Because, especially early on for a lot of the country stuff, they had kind of these dance mixes of a few of these songs. So that's what I would actually play in the club because it fit.
Sure.
And, but that's also kind of you got to read the room type situation. So, yeah, if you want to play a rock tune or, whatever else.
Yeah, I know. That gets difficult. I mean, even doing weddings and things, you kind of go, okay, but weddings, I would always start off with, and I would explain to the bride and groom beforehand, okay, it's going to be, dinner music, and then when we get going, we're going to play older stuff to get grandma and grandpa and mom out there and daddy to dance.
You got to play Shout.
Shout, yeah.
Yeah. That's a classic wedding reception song, right?
Twist, the twist, stuff like that, to get them out there to do that. And then then I would make a general announcement, okay, we're going to cut loose, just tell me what you want, and we'll, make it fit. But yeah, I had a couple club offers too, and for some reason I turned them down. I think because in my mind it was going to be all techno stuff, and I knew nothing about things like that. When you're talking dance music, country dance music, I guess it was in the 90s. One of our part-timers at KNU, he said, we should do a country dance show. And at the time, it was, the long version of Boot Scoot and Boogie, Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah.
And that was about it. And I was like, well, great idea, but there's not the library to support. So we ended up, and I forgot the name of the show, but the whole concept was a real outlaw vibe. Basically, if it had to do with, dance music or
booze,
behavior that shouldn't be done, we would sit there and we would use that and put it together. I remember one time on the show, it was I was testing it out, and I put in the Eagles in Hotel California, and Amy Austin got a hold of me and says, no, that never happens again. Okay, yes, ma'am. It was a live version of Hotel California. I thought, well, it's the Eagles and they're country rock, and they invented country rock. Why can't we do that? No. All right, fine.
There's your boundary.
But,
Found it.
But, at the ranch, we would play people like Junior Brown.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And it fit really well. And, our listeners dug it,
Didn't they try kind of a hybrid of that in Dallas a few years ago where it was kind of...
Yes, they did.
KCKS? Yes.
They did because, why can't I think of his name? J.R. Schumann, I think, was there or part of that group.
Because they do like Skinner mixed in with...
Yeah.
KSCS did that? Oh, yeah, I never knew that.
They played pop music or kind of, with country. Yeah, It was short-lived. It was about 10 years ago, I think.
Because wasn't the deal, because K-Plex is their sister station, I think.
I think so, yeah.
I'm not really well-versed in the market anymore. I remember...
The Wolf, I think, is who they were competing against, and so they were trying to do something totally different to kind of...
Actually, I think that was...
Or was it a different station?
John Roberts.
Was John there?
John Roberts, I think, was the one that created.
I never talked to him about that. No, that
KSCS. He actually came and was our operations manager for a few years.
Yeah, I met John when you were doing your going away thing briefly.
Yeah, you two would have really enjoyed like sitting down, having coffee, and sharing some war stories.
Yeah.
John had some great stories. You needed to be prepared to be there for 2 hours, but,
Yeah.
but he
John
had
was
some
awesome.
great stories. Yeah, he was awesome to work for. He was a wonderful leader.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I know what it was. I saw something on, Facebook. There's like the Texas Hall of Fame, blah, blah, blah. And Smoky River celebrated his 30th at the Wolf. And I'm going, whoa, yeah,
Wow.
30th. I mean, that's, in today's, that's, I mean, I always like to say, radio years are like dog years. I used to look at my career and go, 7 years, and then it was,
Yeah.
gone and things like that. But
Got to hear Smokey at St. Jude one year.
Did you?
When I was out there, he was one of the panelists, and got to sit and hear him. And he's interesting. I've never gotten to meet him, but just being up there, talking about what they did with St. Jude on their broadcast was really cool to listen to him.
hey, did you ever go to country seminar? Like
CRS?
I've never gotten to go to CRS.
Okay.
Never gotten to do that.
It's back in the day, like when I was going in the 90s, and I always tell people you could go there and literally not have to buy your own beer for a week. The reps would take care of you. They were great. And, you could go to seminars and learn stuff, and supposedly. But I remember seeing, it was, and I forget the name of the hotel, but WSM Studio was in this hotel, and you could be walking down and they would have, it was one of these, their studio was maybe, I don't know, 2-3 times as big as Mandee's studio with a glass front, and you could be walking there like at 2:30 in the morning and somebody's in there doing the show, from Mother Church of Country Music, and you just go, really? This is radio. Mm-hmm. But, I have this feeling too that whatever station you go in, it's like when I go to KTBB every day, I kind of walk in and say this little thing. Well, here we go for another day. Could be the last one. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know. I heard you say the Malakoff call letters. Were you there?
I was there for about 2.5 years. KCKL and KLVQ were the two stations there.
KLVQ is the gospel side, right? Because I remember it was probably then you were probably there, obviously, when they were live and local. They sounded good. I mean, if you're sitting there going, this is an Athens, Texas radio station, because I would listen to them, and this is maybe, oh God, I think in 2000, it was when the first iteration of the ranch came and went, and they weren't making money. I was there in the transition, and I got let go. And Rosie and I are driving around, and I'm, listening to KCKL, and I remember saying something like, that station needs my services. And literally it was Tom Perryman probably called me a week later and said, hey man, hey, we're having to do my time. Hey boy, you want to come work here? Yes, I do, sir. I would gladly love to work with you.
Old Tom and his gadget.
Oh, his gadgets. My God.
Yes.
My gosh.
Tom and John Roberts are the two people that I am the saddest that I never had this opportunity with, and that I won't get to. Like the stories that, they could have had their own podcasts. Just there's so many stories, such interesting careers. John did, you may remember this story better than I do, Michael. Didn't he have something to do with the wrestling brothers out of Dallas? The Von Erichs.
No, Von Erichs.
Didn't he MC some of their matches or help with the TV broadcast or something? He was involved back in the day.
He may have. I don't remember the specifics,
kinds of
but
interesting things in his career, and then was all over. He's originally from
Philly.
From Philly, so he worked there. He worked in Dallas, Orlando,
I believe so. Yeah.
and I want to say several other places.
Wasn't it Tucson before he came to Tyler? Something like that.
I don't remember where he was
Uh,
before he came here.
I think he was in Oklahoma.
Maybe so. Yeah.
I think he was in Oklahoma, not Oklahoma City though. What's the T town in Oklahoma that I can't think of right now? Not. I'm going to speak. Kansas,
no, but
that's wrong.
if you say Oklahoma, I'm going to say Oklahoma City because it's like
But I think he was in
Thunder.
Oklahoma before he came to Tyler, and he interesting. He's a Northerner, right?
Yes.
So his attitude and his delivery when he first got here really kind of rubbed me the wrong way at first.
It was harsh.
He was so direct.
Yeah.
And, you know, he'd been in much bigger markets, making much bigger decisions and everything. And then to come to Tyler, Texas, he was just energetic and like, he piled all of us in the car one day to go get something. I think we had to go pick up a car or something. I don't remember, but there were like 5 of us. I felt like I was in a clown car with this man. And I had just met him. I think he'd been there like 2 days. And he called me man. He would abbreviate things. Like instead of saying KKTX for 96, he would just call it TX. Or he would say TYL for mix. But he would call me man. And I finally I stopped him one day and I was like, John, this really bothers me. I was like, I don't know why it bothers me a lot, but it does. Could you just, my name is Mandee. Could you just say Mandee?
And what did he say?
I didn't know it bothered you. And I was like, I know, I feel weird, like even awkward, even asking you, but like it just sits wrong with me. Could you just please call me by my name? And he did. And every once in a while he would slip up, but for the most part he did after I asked.
And he was like a father over all of us as far as the programming. Because I mean, if a salesperson walked through the door just to get to us, he's like, what are y'all doing? I mean, he was. He was like, if you need to talk to them, you talk to me first.
He wanted to make sure there was not anything being pulled over on the programming.
Yeah. He was great. I mean, he was such an advocate for us, for talent and for the programming staff. He really wanted to make sure that we were well paid, well taken care of, appreciated. Because there had been an interesting turn of events with leadership prior to John.
That's a whole other podcast on its own.
That is a whole other podcast on its own. But there was a series, there was a stretch of time there after Jeff Evans left.
Okay.
Where the OM role, operations management role, evolved for a time.
Wasn't that where there was like something different every 6 months?
Not quite every 6 months, maybe about every 18. But there was we had somebody that was there for a short period of time, like 6 weeks, wasn't a fit. He left. Great guy, moved on quickly. And then Vince Richards came in. I'd love to have Vince on the podcast.
Okay.
I really enjoyed working with Vince. But he was kind of a regional OM and then ended up being the second in command behind Kurt Johnson for programming.
Okay.
And he was in Tyler quite a bit with us. I think that was before you joined us. Or
did he hire you? He actually hired me.
I thought so.
To come in because there wasn't an OM at the time.
Right.
When I got hired back.
Yeah, he was kind of filling in the gap there, and he was overseeing Temple Killeen and someplace else, maybe Lufkin Knack, I think at the time. And then they hired someone, and he was not a good fit, and he was there for about 6 months.
The big stew guy. Oh man,
was that the one guy? The one guy?
The one guy.
Well, one guy.
Yeah.
We referred to as, that's the one guy. Okay.
What was your interaction with him? Because my story is probably not fit for a podcast.
Okay. My basic interaction with him is I sat down because I'd just come back to KNUE at the time. This was 2014.
Yeah, because he, I think, came in October of 14.
Yeah. And he'd probably been there maybe about a week or so. And I sat down and I wanted to just have a serious conversation. I was like, I came back here because when I left KNUE originally in 2009, I was program director.
Okay.
And I wanted to get back into that.
Yes.
And I told him that. I was like, my whole reason for being here is I want to get back into programming.
Okay.
Okay, this guy knew me like a week. He laughed in my face.
He laughed at you?
He laughed at me. And I'm like, okay, you barely know me. You supposedly have been over, because he was from Jacksonville or Orlando or something.
He had been in Orlando for a time, yeah.
And I'm like, so you've been in a big market, so you should know how this works, and you should know that if you have somebody coming to you saying, hey, I want to get back up to this higher level, that maybe you ought to encourage me.
And it's something to where he can say, hey, let's talk more about your qualifications and we can get you into programming.
Yes.
Could you help me?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But his general reaction was
laughter,
a laugh in my face, and not a funny laugh. It was a laugh of condensation. And I'm I was like,
I'm sure your feeling was, I want to leave now.
I was done with him.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to stay here because everybody else around me, because Lucky was there, Mandee was there,
kind and supportive.
Everybody else was great. It was awesome. It was him. And And I think that kind of got around in the company because who was it? The guy after him, I think.
Brian Rickman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody told him that like we were hard to work with. that we were.
Oh.
And
which is not true.
Yeah. And after sitting down with Brian, all of us sitting down with Brian Rickman and getting
we got along great with him.
Yeah. And getting along with him, he was like, y'all are not the problem. The problem was the people that were brought in here for leadership.
I remember him saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had forgotten about that conversation with Brian. He's somebody else I'd like to invite on sometime, Chuck. I'll have to reach out to him.
Yeah.
He's got an interesting story and has had a really interesting career, written some novels.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good writer. He's a really good writer.
What's his stock in trade? I mean, what kind of novels does he write?
Sci-fi?
Think so.
Oh,
I think they
cool.
were sci-fi. It's been a long time since I've talked to him about that, but yeah. And I think he did some voiceover work over the years too. But he's done a lot of things. He's an interesting guy. I don't think Tyler was a great fit for him at that particular time in his life when he was here.
Yeah.
He had some personal things that were going on, and it just wasn't. He wasn't here with us for a super long time. But I enjoyed working with him while he was here. And then after Brian, who did we have? Is that when John came in?
That's when John came in.
Yeah. And man, let me tell you, Lucky Larry filled in those gaps in between.
Yeah.
In between those guys, because they're, that we'd go like 3 or 4 months without having an official OM, and Larry would step up and fill in the gaps. And Larry is one of those people that is like a really quiet behind the scenes leader. He's not somebody that's going to tell you what to do.
Look at me.
No.
Yeah.
No, he's not going to put the spotlight on him. He'll ask you to do things. He'll request them. He's not demanding, but he also trusts you to do your job.
Yeah.
He never micromanaged me.
No.
Ever. He was really, Larry was exceptional to work with and for.
Cool.
I really, really missed that. But yeah, that was an interesting period of time.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that. I don't know if you shared that story with me at the time when Stu was here, but Buddy and I had some interesting interactions with him as well. And I won't go into detail with mine, but at one point he blew up at me right before he was put on medical leave for his toe. That sounds really flippant. He did actually have a staph infection in his toe, and it was pretty serious.
All right.
But
I don't want to laugh about staph infections.
it was pretty serious. But he and I had an interaction where he was trying to coach me on something, and I was on a call with him, the guy that was my PD at the time, and I can't remember his name, at US 105 because I was voice tracking for them in Temple Killeen.
Okay.
And Vince Richards was also on the call, and I was having some kind of audio issue with getting my tracks to Temple Killeen, and I had tried to clean them up, tried various things, and I was explaining myself, and then Stu interjected with his thoughts, and I had like either already tried that or it wasn't viable, and so whenever I responded with that, he like lost it on the call, like his temper exploded. Wow. And they heard it. And I had been dealing with these kind of reactions from him sort of quietly and just sending myself emails and notes because I was like, I'm going to need to document this because this is not going to be good. And then Vince called me after and we had a very candid conversation about what had actually been going on and how frustrating my world had been with him there. And I think I finally said, it's him or me, Vince.
Yeah.
We got to figure this out because I can't keep going on like this. And he was like, well, after everything you just told me, I understand why you feel that way. And so HR got involved. And anyway.
I've only had a couple of situations like that. And I've always, I've told my wife, if you're working with people who maybe aren't doing the job or aren't doing things right or are violating rules, I always say, they're going to hang themselves eventually. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty old school in that. It's like I've only had one situation where I had to go to management and say, look, it was a situation where a jock at the station would come and hang out at my nighttime show, but he was drunk, really drunk. And I would say, look, you can't do this because every once in a while I'd be cracking the mic and he'd still be talking. I said, you can't do this. And I tend to come from the school that if I'm doing my show this is my studio. You know, you and
It's not Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And I warned him like
Kicked me out of the studio
4 or
once and
5
said
times. And well, okay, when you say me, it was, you've seen the Ranch studio. It's like
tiny.
It's tiny. So it was her, Don Jones, the future Mrs.
Jones,
Tara Holly, and her. And they're like just gabbing. And I'm like, I go, look, this isn't Madison Square Garden. I'm program director. And what did they do? They laughed at me.
We did, and then we left.
And I said, but I'm program director. We had
a good time with each other.
We had a good time.
As family.
I could see that scene in my head, even though I wasn't there. I could see that scene in my head.
Because you get to work with Tara on a regular basis now.
I wanted
Tara.
to have my shirt that says I'm the boss. No, I was blessed. The only time I've programmed, I mean, Tom Perriman's middays, you know, Don is doing more. When I think of Don's schedule, I mean, he was probably there at 5 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon every day, handling production. You know, most of my duties, besides stationality and music stuff, Mandee was a tremendous help as far as coordinating promotions and doing promotions with us. You were promotions director, really, and APD, because that's why.
I made things pretty for Chuck.
Yeah.
That was the joke in the office. Is he'd handwrite something, and then I would type it up and put a logo on it, and I would make it pretty.
Yeah, she would look at me typing like a man. She goes, "Oh Christ, no, we can't do this. No. We just, this is not acceptable. Acceptable to me? Well, you know, not to me. But where were we on the conversation? You were talking about...
I don't know. We were talking about leadership styles, I think. And, and just how great John Roberts was. And
I guess what I was trying to say, too, is just really... I never ran into that much, but when I did, I just let it play out. And normally it would, which is, you know, the offending person would either get fired or, you know... Or in one case, I ended up leaving. So just, you know... And
that's certainly how I felt with him. I was like, this guy's not going to be here long, so there's...
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait it out.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did.
There's no worse feeling if you have something like that where you're sitting down with the program director. And when I was in Charleston, West Virginia, I was hired by a regional dude to do middays. So when I got there, it was one of these things to where, this is an open arms type thing here. And I remember doing an air check session with the PD. And it wasn't like, you know, you have your cassette and you'd go in and they'd tear it apart. He was like, come on in. And then he started talking to me on an air check session. We started going over it. And I'm going, oh, so this is how it goes.
Hey, speaking of, did you ever do an air check session with Stu?
No.
I did.
Brutal? How was it?
Oh, boy.
Oh, how do I explain this nicely? I don't think he had listened to any of my breaks prior to sitting down to the conversation with me. So he had very specific like things he wanted me to do. I think there were like, I had 5 breaks an hour. So he wanted one to be like personality based, like about myself or whatever, artist based, pop culture, local. And what would the other one be? I don't know. Something. But there was like 5 things. And so I had these things in front of me, and I would map out my show before I ever went on because I had music logs, and I would plan my show accordingly.
Okay.
I followed directions. I followed the formula. So we're listening to my air check, and he starts telling me, oh, well, you should have done like artist content on this one. And I'm thinking, I know where the artist content is. It's in the next break. And he'd be like, oh, well, you should have done personality content in this one. It was literally in the next break. Every comment that he had for me that was like critical, and all of them were critical, it was in the next break.
So
he all of his, and then there was one where he was like, the song Budapest was out at the time by George, I think not George Ezra. Is it George Ezra? I can't remember who the artist is. I think maybe it. Anyway, but the Grand Budapest Hotel, the film, was also out at the time. They weren't connected. That wasn't like a part of the soundtrack. Wes Anderson did not use the song Budapest as a part of the film.
Yeah.
Stu thought that it was. And so he criticized me and said that I should have talked about that, that it was part of the soundtrack. And I was like, but he was like on the Tonight Show with somebody, and that's what I talked about instead. And those two things aren't related or whatever. No. And he was just like, well, yes, they are. And I was, okay, all right, whatever. Like he was just he was critical. He was condescending, to your point. And like, I was just like, how does this guy, like, I could program. I mean, I never was the program director of any station, but I did a lot of programming behind the scenes work with Chuck. And then at KOOI, I was essentially the APD there.
Dave, yeah.
And yeah. And so like, I was like, how did this guy get this job?
So let me clarify. Can you clarify something? So you have these station things that he wants. So he wanted them in order?
No, he just wanted to say that I should have done something different on every break.
But see, and that's what I thought he was criticizing you because, this one, it wasn't exactly what he wanted. Because to me, I would be, okay, these are the 5 things.
But he didn't have them in an order.
Do them whenever. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Do them whenever it makes sense for the break. Yes. And that's what I did.
I mean, we had something on the ranch where I had like 2 text files. One was like PSA stuff. The other was stationality stuff. And it was like, okay, get them in here and some of you, and we're good. And we're golden.
And it was just the most awful. I mean, I've had air check sessions where people have coached me. Where I needed, like, I had crutch words, or I had things that I needed to work on, or I talked too long, or whatever. Yeah. I've had air check sessions that were, not necessarily, they were challenging, I should say, but not like personally attacking me, which is how I felt whenever I was in that session with him. And I think, I don't know, I guess I'm going to say this, Chuck, you can choose whether or not to cut it or not if it's appropriate. But I think that there was a little bit of a gender situation happening that I didn't see coming.
What have we missed? Have we missed it? Is there anything, like, you've had any experiences that are, well, the Garth Brooks stories are pretty cool. Anything that we've missed talking about?
I don't think
so. You got anything, Mandee?
You want to talk about your time programming KNUE at all? We kind of like jumped right past it, I feel like.
Well, I mean, it was, going back to why I wanted to get back into programming.
Okay,
it was, that was, doing that for KNUE was definitely fun because to me it was like a mad scientist.
Yes.
Taking, okay, these songs, this song needs to go here, this song needs to come out of the stop set, this song needs to play in this position.
Yes.
I need it to play a lot because it's a hit, but I don't want it to play too much so people don't get burned out on it. So it was, I loved that part.
Isn't that exhilarating?
Of being able to program, yeah. And then to make that sound, the liners and stuff in between the songs, and to have, yes.
Would you be listening in your car, you're driving home, and you hear things running and you go, it runs like a clock. It runs well. That's satisfying. I love music databases. Yeah. I love working with them. I haven't had a live one on my hands since 2010, but I like that a lot because, and sometimes you'd have problems with it. I mean, did you ever have something where all of a sudden you're going, why is this song playing here, here, and here when it shouldn't be?
I had moments like that, yeah.
I remember one. It was so specific. It was O.C. Smith, the song Little Green Apples from like the early 60s. I saw it was like 4:30.
Of all things.
Yeah, 4:30 in the morning, 3 days in a row. And I was like, oh, while this worried me, I thought, is there something else going on? I had to get the manual from Music Master on a Saturday and just sit there and troubleshoot it. At that time, Music Master, had advanced to the point where, and I still remember there was it would look at all of your rules, and you'd press a button to diagnose it, and then it would say, this is what you do, essentially. And so I would sit there, run logs, and take a look and see if there's any problems, and then, put that in play. But, yeah, it was one of those Saturdays where I spent about the whole day, diagnosing, going over it, and, because my whole thing with the ranch was I wanted as much variety as I could while keeping the whole concept of classic country in the listeners' minds, which, whether you're playing, because I think by the time I left in 2010, I think we were just going to get to where we're going to be playing Martina McBride and stuff like that. But, I listen these days too, and I go, would I play that? I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, like, and listening to the other stations in the area.
Yes.
So kind of, okay, so they're doing this.
Yes.
So I might need to do, because at one time, our closest competitor was the ranch.
Yeah.
KYKX wasn't in that mix.
No.
Nope.
It was the ranch was the biggest competitor to KNUE.
We remember.
So I was like, I may need to throw in a classic every once in a while. So I would do that. I think it was either every other hour or every third hour.
Oh, yeah.
I would throw in a
Jones or Haggard?
a Haggard or something like that. Just to.
Did you just spike it, or did you have a particular? I mean, were you just editing and go, hey man, coal miner's daughter would go right here, that sort of thing?
I didn't do it that way.
Or did you put together a specific category?
Yeah, I just had a specific category.
Yeah, okay.
But I wouldn't intro it anyway.
Yeah.
It would just, there it is.
Yeah.
I'm almost a shock to the system to our listener.
Yeah.
Oh man, they're still playing that.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's when I did it at KNUE in the mid-90s. That's how I wanted. We did the liner thing going into it, but it was something to where we wanted to have it featured and have it to where it was going into like the 20-minute break. So, like if Mandee's there, she's actually back announcing that song and maybe going to stationality stuff and plugging other things as well. But did you become program director after that one dude left, Stu? Is that?
No, that was 2005 when I got moved up to program director. So it was from 2005 to it's like mid 2009.
Oh, okay.
That was program. So about 4.5 years.
Okay.
I was program director.
Okay. And I've only done the one time. I feel fortunate having done it. Sometimes, every once in a while, I'll have the late at night thoughts. If somebody were to say to me, "Let's build this," would you do it? And I go, God, I don't know. I'm a KTBB. Things are comfortable. They feel pretty safe. The coffee is free, and I'm like, well, I'm not in any trouble there for anything. So I'm like, okay, I think I'll be, if Mr. Gleiser lets me, I'll hopefully ride my career out there, and I'll be just happy doing that.
Michael, you got anything else?
Got anything else to add?
Okay.
We're going to call.
This has been an awesome conversation.
Thank you. I'm so glad you
I've
enjoyed
loved
it.
every minute of this.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much. And we're glad that you're here because, we realize, hey, it's Saturday.
You got things to do.
Yeah.
You can be doing other stuff, and
I'm
we
actually
appreciate
going to
you
look
spending
at wedding
time.
bands.
I was about to say,
wedding
we're
bands
engaged.
and
That's the big thing we forgot.
and my tuxes. Yeah. So I'm
Yay.
getting married in September.
What's the date?
September 13th.
That's right. Your birthday's like what, the 14th?
Yeah, my birthday's the 14th.
Yeah.
It was
Great
just
scheduling.
Yeah.
You won't forget.
Plus, it'll be easy for me to remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it wasn't supposed to originally work out that way. It was just how scheduling works.
The venue was available. People could come into town. Yeah.
So, but yeah. So I'm
Congratulations.
so I'm so ready. Her name is Amber. She is a fantastic woman. She's a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. So we definitely get into the argument sometimes. It's going to be a house divided for Thanksgiving because the Cowboys and Chiefs got to play.
Michael, you'll have to come back. There's so many more things we can talk about. I mean, Marvel movies. I know you're into that.
Yeah.
Sports. I mean, you'll have to come back. This has been so fun. Thank
I
you.
cried when the Rangers won the World Series.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was so happy because I saw them 2010, 2011. They were right there both those years and didn't happen. And then when they won that, I was like,
Well, did you know that the World Series trophy was in Tyler and Chuck didn't invite us to come see it?
Well, it was over at Golden Chick.
It was at KTBB.
Oh, was it?
And we did not get the invite.
So I did go see it over there.
You did? Well,
so
you got to see
I at
it.
least got to see it.
So I can still be mad at you.
So, see, legally,
I don't get mad at Chuck for anything.
No.
This is a joke.
legally, your anger does not have an end date. All kidding aside, we had people over for it. I think Paul had like.
Oh yeah, the listeners were invited, but Mandee wasn't.
He had Subway sandwiches up, but it was so cool watching dads with their kids, right?
Yeah.
And the dads were more excited than the kids. Like,
oh yeah.
And I still remember there was a gentleman I was talking to. And it was like 10 after 6 or whatever. You go in and glad hand, talk to folks. And I introduced myself because, Chuck McKinley. And I said, yeah, hey, have you ever been to a radio studio? Come on, let me show you. And I was saying, well, okay, when I'm doing the drive at 5, I'm behind the control board here. Jared's in the booth there. And that's how things work. And he goes, wow. And I go, yeah, that's how it works here. So I'm always reminded that I think the oh wow factor still comes to the fact that we're not on TV. They can't see us. There's that air of mystery. So unless they're, you're doing things like this, hey, we get to talk about, what you're doing, what's your wedding date going to be. Well, it gets you more in
You
contact.
guys have been together for a while, haven't you?
We've been together
years?
almost 6 years.
I thought so.
So,
I thought you guys got together shortly after I left.
Yeah, so I'm getting a lot of it's about time talks, but
Aaron
Not-
waited.
not-
Aaron waited 5 years to propose to me.
yeah,
I get it.
I mean, not to get too personal, but the last relationship I was in was just not good.
Yeah.
And so it took a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
It took a
gotta
little
heal.
bit for my mind to come around.
Trust factor and everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she put up with me. She stuck around. She's maybe a better man. I have admitted that to her face, like on a couple occasions, so she does know that. But yeah, she's definitely made me a better man.
But you're still a Cowboys fan.
I'm sorry. I should.
I am still a Cowboys fan. I think that's probably my eternal curse in life. But I think if that is my one curse in life, I will accept that.
My buddy Brian Houston has the best commentary on that. He said, I live in a world in which my son, Matthew Houston, has never seen the Dallas Cowboys win a world championship. And Matthew is, I think, 27, something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, it was just the best line we did sports.
I was a senior in high school when the Cowboys won their last championship in
Yeah.
'96.
But they're the best soap opera around. They are.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Michael, this has been so fun. Thank you.
This has been another episode of The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
Podcasting.
Gear.
And the gearheads that use the gear.
and making money with a hot mic.
And other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.